The first time I realized my HOA president was willing to fake a federal investigation. A black helicopter dropped onto my dock like a movie scene. One minute I was standing on my own shoreline, the next minute a federal agent was staring past me at my neighbor in a blonde bob while she tried to keep smiling through clenched teeth. And when the cuffs clicked, the whole street went dead silent. I didn't move to Silver Pine Ridge for drama. I moved there because I wanted quiet trees, water, a cabin that smelled like cedar, and mornings where the loudest thing was a pair of geese arguing like they paid rent. The lake wasn't some community amenity. It was part of my property, deeded and surveyed long before this subdivision ever had a gate code. But the Homeowners Association didn't care about history. The HOA cared about control and apparently cosplay. It started on a Tuesday like most dumb problems do, right when you're trying to live a normal life. I'm on my dock with a coffee checking the little aerator pump I run to keep algae down when I hear heels on wood behind me. Fast, sharp, confident. "Excuse me, sir." I turn, and there she is. Valerie Whitman, HOA president. Mid-40s, perfect hair, perfect lipstick. A binder pressed to her chest like a holy book. She's got two people behind her, both holding clipboards, both looking around like they're inspecting a crime scene. Valerie doesn't say hello. She points past me at the water. "You need to stop what you're doing right now. This area has been reclassified under federal wetlands protections." I blink. Reclassified by who? She gives me this little smile like I'm the one who's behind. By the people who actually matter. "You're trespassing. On my own dock. On my own lake." Before I can even process how insane that sentence is, she pulls out her phone and says loud enough for the neighborhood to hear I'm calling 911. Environmental crime in progress. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my brain needed somewhere to put the disbelief. A few minutes later, a sheriff's deputy rolls up Deputy Cole Harris, a guy I'd seen around town. He steps out calm, one hand resting near his belt, and walks down toward the water like he's expecting someone to be fishing without a license. Valerie pounces. She starts flipping through her binder, tapping highlighted lines, tossing out words like EPA, Federal Code, Protected Habitat Sanctuary. It's a performance, and she's good at performance. Deputy Harris looks at me, then at my dock, then back at Valerie. "Ma'am, you're telling me this is federal land?" Valerie nods like she's answering a child. "It's under federal jurisdiction. The Homeowners Association has a compliance committee. We have authority." I keep my voice low. "Deputy, I own this. I can show you the deed." Valerie cuts in immediately. "He's lying. He's always lying. He's been manipulating the board since he moved in." Deputy Harris doesn't react to that. He just watches Valerie the way you watch someone who's talking too fast. He asks her for a case number, a contact at the EPA, anything official. Valerie's smile tightens just a fraction. "They're processing it." Deputy Harris finally looks at me and says, "Do me a favor. Don't do anything else out here today. Keep it calm. I'm documenting the call." Valerie stands a little taller like she won. Like she just put me on probation. As they leave, she leans in and drops her voice. "This is only the beginning. If you want peace, you'll cooperate." And then she walks away like she owns the shoreline. I spent that afternoon doing what normal people do when someone threatens them with fake federal law. I pulled my property records, my survey, the county maps, and every single document that proved the lake was mine. I wasn't panicking yet. Not exactly. I was annoyed, angry. The kind of angry that makes you move efficiently. But I kept thinking, why 911? Why federal? Why so dramatic? The answer showed up before sunset. I heard engines first, then tires crunching gravel, then the kind of door slams that come with confidence. 4 SUVs rolled down my drive like a parade, clean, glossy, expensive. And out came Valerie again, wearing a different outfit this time, with a bright safety vest, like she was suddenly a professional. Behind her, 3 guys I'd never seen. One carrying stakes, one carrying caution tape, one carrying a huge sign rolled up in the back like they were setting up a concert. Valerie doesn't even pretend to be polite. "We're shutting this down," she says. "Federal wetlands, no entry." One of the guys unrolls the sign and, no joke, plants it near my shoreline. "Federal wetlands, no trespassing, under investigation." It looked almost real, almost. Except for 2 things. One, the sign was printed like something you order online. The edges were too clean. The font was wrong. The seal looked like it had been stretched in Photoshop. And 2, the guy holding it didn't know what he was doing. He hammered the stake into my ground like he'd never held a mallet in his life. Valerie started stringing caution tape across my dock. She actually tried to block me from stepping onto my own property with a strip of plastic. "Valerie," I said, keeping my voice steady, "you can't do this." "Yes, we can," she snapped, "and if you interfere, that's obstruction." I could feel my pulse in my neck. The world narrowed down to her face and that tape and the fact that everyone on my street could see this. A couple neighbors had drifted outside, just enough to watch, not enough to help. That's when I felt it, the first real hit of helplessness. Not the dramatic kind, not the woe is me kind, the practical kind. Because even if she was lying, she was loud, she was bold, and she had an audience. And in that moment I thought, if she keeps pushing this story, am I really about to spend weeks proving I'm not some villain on my own land? I looked at the sign, I looked at the tape, and for half a second I wondered if backing off was smarter. Lock the cabin, stay inside, let the noise pass. Then I saw what changed everything. One of the men, wearing what I can only describe as a cheap hazmat suit, walked down near the waterline with a little metal probe and a plastic jar. He kneels, digs a shallow hole, and I watch his hands carefully. He pulls something from his pocket, a small dark bag, wet-looking, like sludge, and he drops it into the hole before he takes the sample. My stomach went cold. That wasn't intimidation. That was planting evidence. I didn't yell. I didn't charge him. I didn't touch anything. I just said calmly, "Step away from that." Valerie whipped her head toward me. "Don't you dare tell my contractor what to do." Contractor. So now she was pretending this was all legitimate work. That's when Hank Doyle, my neighbor, late 60s flannel jacket hands like he's built half this town, walks right up beside me and stops. He doesn't say much at first. He just watches. He sees the hole. He sees the bag. He sees the jar. Then he leans in and murmurs, "They tried something like this with the Carsons 2 streets over. Scared them into selling." I kept my eyes forward. "You saw that, right?" Hank nods once, clear as day. My brain snapped into a different gear. I've dealt with compliance before. I've worked adjacent to environmental investigations. I know what real procedure looks like, and I know what crimes look like when they're wearing a costume. So I did 3 things fast. I pulled out my phone and started recording, not the dramatic waving around kind, the steady kind, time, date, faces. I told Hank, "Don't move. Stay right here. You're my witness." And I made 1 call, to a number most people don't have. Valerie was still barking orders, still pretending she had power, still feeding off the attention. "I'm going to have you removed from this property," she said, voice rising. "You are contaminating federally protected water." I didn't argue with her anymore. There was no point. I just watched the man in the hazmat suit set the jar on the ground like a prop, and I waited. The first sound was distant, low and heavy, like thunder that didn't match the sky. Then the trees at the edge of the lake started to whip in the wind. And then the helicopter came into view. Black, loud, real. It swept over the water and hovered right above my dock, sending ripples across the surface like the lake itself was bracing. Valerie froze. The guy with the stakes froze. The neighbors froze. The helicopter landed in a tight open stretch near the shoreline, and 2 agents stepped out like they'd done this 1,000 times. One of them, Agent Dana Brooks, walked straight toward Valerie, eyes scanning everything. The tape, the sign, the hazmat suit, the jar sitting by a suspicious fresh hole. Valerie recovered fast. Of course she did. She pasted on a smile and stepped forward like she was about to shake hands with a VIP. "Thank God you're here," she said. "We've been dealing with a serious violation." Agent Brooks held up a hand. "Stop. Just stop." Valerie's mouth stayed open for a second, like her brain didn't recognize the word when it wasn't coming from her. Agent Brooks looked at the sign. "Who put that up?" Valerie straightened. "The Homeowners Association. I'm the president. We have authority." Agent Brooks cut her off again. "No, you don't." Then the agent turned and pointed at the jar. "And what is that?" The man in the hazmat suit swallowed. Valerie snapped, "That's evidence. He was collecting a sample." Agent Brooks walked closer, not touching anything, just observing. "You're collecting samples without a chain of custody, without a case number, without jurisdiction." Valerie's face started to change. The confident color drained into something sharper. "This is a misunderstanding," she said quickly. "We're working with—" "Who?" Agent Brooks asked. Valerie hesitated. That hesitation was the whole story. Agent Brooks nodded once like the last piece clicked into place. Then she glanced at me. I kept my voice steady. "Agent, I own this property. That sign is fake. And I watched them put something in that hole before they sampled it." Hank cleared his throat. I saw it too. Agent Brooks looked back at Valerie, and the tone shifted from questioning to cold. "Ma'am," she said, "impersonating federal authority is a felony. Fabricating an environmental enforcement action is a felony. Tampering with evidence is a felony." Valerie's smile collapsed completely. "You can't prove any of that." Agent Brooks didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "We don't have to argue," she said. "We investigate." Then she nodded to the second agent, who stepped behind Valerie with handcuffs already out. Valerie's eyes widened. Wait. This is my neighborhood. I'm the president. I have—" "Hands behind your back," the agent said. Valerie tried to turn like she was going to run on pure entitlement, but you can't outrun a bad plan. The cuffs closed with a quiet click that somehow sounded louder than the helicopter. One of the guys with the stakes took a step back and immediately got told to sit down on the ground. The hazmat suit guy looked like he might throw up. The neighbors didn't cheer. Nobody clapped. Nobody said a word. They just watched the woman who'd been bossing them around for years get led away past her own fake sign, past the tape she'd stretched across my dock. Past the lake she tried to steal with a printer and a phone call. And I stood there, breathing slow, staring at the ripples on the water, thinking how close I came to letting her scare me into silence. Because that's how they win. People like Valerie don't need to be right. They just need you to back down. So here's the lesson, plain and simple. Never confuse someone's confidence with actual authority.